Our heroes now find themselves once again on the beaten gummy ship path of mundane boredom, blasting slow-moving heartless ships out of the sky, until they come upon the outskirts of a new world, realized by giant trees and jagged cliffsides. Goofy muses that the king might be down there, but Donald is like, "In a backwater place like that? No way!" Sora then postulates that Riku and Kairi might be down there and tells Donald to land, but Donald's like, fuck that shit. Then Sora's like, just land, and Donald's like, nope, still fuck that shit. And Sora's like, come on! And then Donald's like, oh, god damn it, fine. But then Sora gets so excited, being the toddler that he is sometimes, that he apparently starts flailing around in the cockpit and knocks over some switch that causes the ship to fly out of control and crash, flinging the survivors in different directions. Sora lands directly on the back of his head through the rickety roof of a musty old treehouse, an event that might explain why he's such a dumb idiot in future games. It's brain damage. But with nearly no time to catch his breath, he can feel someone or something watching him, stalking him, and not in the harmless Facebook kind of way either. Suddenly, with a quick and aggressive bounding leap, he is set upon by a voracious leopard. Sora quickly holds his Keyblade out to block the biting attack, keeping the tiger at bay as it gnaws on the metal of his weapon and knocks it back. Sora then prepares to fight the cheetah, who proves to have very fast movements and a resistance to staggering. After enough hits, the panther makes another move to attack Sora, but just then, a strange figure swoops down from the rafters and blocks the lion's attack with his spear. It's a man wearing as little clothing as Disney can get away with long, luscious locks of L'Oreal hair. The giant squirrel holds its ground against the man for a second, but then thinks better of its situation and retreats. The man, without turning to look at Sora, says, "Sabor. Danger." He talks like a guy who was raised by gorillas his entire life, which is oddly specific to the circumstances. As he turns towards Sora, Sora notices the fuzzy figure of a girl with red hair walking out the door behind him. Sora has trouble focusing on what Tarzan, who introduces himself as Tarzan, as his name is Tarzan, is saying due to this blurry fever dream going on behind him. Sora tells Tarzan he's looking for his friends Riku and Kairi. Tarzan responds with, "He, friends, here." Which is a golden lesson to be learned that if you're going to accidentally crash land in a world, at least learn the language first. Nobody likes tourists bumbling around misunderstanding everything. Sora takes this to mean that his friends are indeed in this deep jungle for some reason, and agrees to go along with Tarzan, who is supposedly going to lead him to them. Meanwhile, Donald and Goofy have landed in an open clearing on a boulder. Goofy hopes Sora's okay, but Donald's like, fuck that shit, it's a theme of this episode. They hear a noise, and a man dressed in safari clothes with a double-barreled shotgun walks up to them, but it's not duck season yet in Looney Tunes, so he does not shoot. Meanwhile, Tarzan and Sora take a shortcut to a campsite by sliding down the largest, most winding serpentine tree branch the world has ever seen. Even Gaia herself don't have wood that big, and Sora's getting the hang of trunk surfing a little too quickly. They reach the camp and walk into a pale yellow tent where a chick wearing a grass skirt or clothes is fiddling with a projector. She turns around and notices Tarzan before seeing Sora and asking, "And who is this?" Sora says, "I'm Sora," because he's Sora. I really shouldn't have to explain this to you people. Jane is surprised that Sora speaks English, because that's the country we live in today. Sad, isn't it? Suddenly, Safari Man walks through the tent with Donald and Goofy. Sora and Donald embrace gaily before remembering they're supposed to be mad at each other. Sora explains to Jane about how Tarzan said he could find his friends, but there was one word he couldn't understand. Jane gets the idea that they can watch a bunch of random pictures flash by on the projector and maybe some fucking how one of them will match the word Tarzan spoke in gorilla. But then in a cruel plot twist, it appears some miscreant has scattered all of the slides across the campsite. What a dastardly goal-driven deed that is. After you round all of them up, and yes, that's gameplay, all of the pictures are shown one after the other on the back wall of the tent. The first is of a fancy castle, and this gives Sora pause. He knows he's never been there before, but it still feels familiar to him for some reason. What follows are some more inconsequential photos, one of which is a gorilla, which seems a little on the nose to me. You're trying to figure out a specific word meaning from a different language. That's like if someone said a word in Chinese you didn't understand, and to try to guess it, you just threw up a picture of Jackie Chan. Is it him? That's actually so funny now. Like, hey, do you know this guy? Anyway, Jane looks at Tarzan like, well? Sora asks him one more time, "Where are my friends, Riku and Kairi?" Tarzan looks at Sora and shakes his head. Clayton says Sora's friends have to be with the gorillas, as the only place left they haven't checked, but the deep jungle world is on planet Earth, and a real place. I mean, Jane sailed there from England, so there's England. Riku and Kairi could be in a pub somewhere in London for all we know. Tarzan says he will go see Kerchak, the leader of the gorillas, to ask about Sora's friends. Clayton happily says he will go along as an escort because, quote, "the jungle is a dangerous place," and at this point the camera decides to zoom in on his fucking chin so you can see the grin plaster itself on his face after that line, just to make sure you have no possible way of missing the sinister undertones here. They all set off for the treetops, and Tarzan implores the big, buff gorilla Kerchak to help them in their quest, but Kerchak mostly just sits there before glancing off in a direction and slowly walking away. Goofy wonders if he was looking toward the treehouse, so Sora, Donald, and Goofy go over there to see what's up. In the middle of the treehouse, a small lesbian gorilla is spinning a globe around and around, while off in the distance a certain hunter aims his shotgun directly at it. Donald runs up and yells, "Wah!" which warns the gorilla to run away, just before the bullet lands right where it stood, which props to Clayton for a decent shot under that sudden noise pressure. Clayton makes excuses for how he's trying to kill a snake that slithered by, but nobody buys that shit. Later on at the campsite, Jane is outraged and forbids Clayton from ever going near the gorillas again. So he walks out of the tent and yells very loudly in a volume of voice where the people in the tent can totally hear everything, "Blasted gorillas! I'll hunt down every last one of them!" Then he hears a snapping sound off in the bushes that makes him go, "Whoa?" He hears more rustling and aims his gun in the direction of the sound. The camera pans up as we hear the sound of a gunshot ringing out throughout the area. As Sora and the others rush out of the tent, they see the world's first monkey heartless swarming the regular monkeys. They must travel to each area and kill all the heartless to save the baboons from getting wrecked AF. After all the orangutans are rescued, the group goes back to the tent only to find that Jane and the gibbon she was protecting is missing. Making their way to the treehouse, Sora and the others notice a big black fruit growing on a tree that apparently looks suspicious. Oh yeah, just 'cause it's black, it looks suspicious. Come on, game. If that was a white fruit, you'd let it off with a warning. Keyblade Masters think they can do whatever they want with no consequences, just profiling anything they see as darkness or evil. Well, I'm calling for Sora's immediate resignation. Anyway, after they choke out the big black fruit for selling loose cigarettes, Jane and her capuchin are rescued, and everyone goes to find Clayton. On the cliffside, Clayton and the Heartless seem to be on the same side of things, as the monkeys have the monkeys surrounded while Clayton looks down the barrel of his gun right at Kerchak's wife or mate or whatever monkeys have. He's about to pull the trigger when Sora runs up and says, "No!" which is apparently all it takes to prevent gorilla murder, because Clayton lowers his weapon and turns to face Sora and Tarzan. The battle starts, and Clayton lets out a huge yell that is promptly interrupted by getting the shit kicked out of him over and over and over and still comboing him, and he's not doing a damn thing about it, but all of a sudden the screen turns white. Clayton backs up against a wall, which explodes and reveals a mostly invisible giant creature that Clayton starts to ride. Tarzan rushes forward, but Clayton shoots him square in the fucking face. Although later they act like the bullet just grazed his arm, but a graze doesn't send someone flying 10 feet onto their back. Hitting it enough times causes it to reveal itself as a huge chameleon that can shoot eye lasers and wind blasts. After whacking Clayton in the face enough times with the Keyblade, the big creature falls onto Clayton and kills him, revealing the heart the monster stole from him as it disappears into thin air. Kerchak throws Sora and everyone up towards the waterfall so they can lock the keyhole in this world too, which there seems to be one in every world. After that ceremonious locking, Turk, the lesbarilla Jane saved, starts rubbing up against Donald like maybe she bi-curious now. Donald's not into that at all, not because he doesn't have a huge hard-on for gorillas, but primarily because Daisy would kill him apparently, and the group laughs and laughs. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.